The fastest Porsche Panamera ever, here in the form of the Panamera Turbo S Hybrid, is today on Autogefuehl, your #1 resource for in-depth car reviews and your #1 community to discuss cars with Thomas. We're going to take a detailed look on the exterior here in this chalk color. It's also really called chalk, the sporty interior and the driving performance on the racetrack for you here today, giving you the maximum performance with 680 horsepower, and also talk about the hybrid technology. Let's go with Autogefuehl in full HD, full screen and full length. Let's go. All the new Porsche models have something in common. They have this new 4-dot design when you go for the LED headlights. The Panamera especially is characterized by those two design lines right there, making the hood appear a little bit stronger, and the turbo models, they have bigger air intakes in the lower part. From the front you could not really distinguish this one here, the new Turbo S hybrid model, from the normal turbo. You can also check the other turbo review, funnily in the very same color we had it just a couple of months ago, and then you compare it later. I can tell you, if we continue on our tour with the car, there will be some differences here also for the hybrid. 5 meters 05 or 16'6" is the total length, and the hybrid, no matter if you go for the V6 or here the V8 hybrid, has this acid green scheme with the E-hybrid badge right there, and also with the brake calipers. You can see it. You can argue if it's rather yellow or green. It is called acid green, and I mean, let's just leave it by that. Interesting features here too is a contrast at the door handles, for example, with the chalk white color and the black on the inside. And the Turbo S Hybrid is only available as a sedan. There's also now the Sport Turismo, the Estate. You can check that one out in a separate review. We will link that down in the video description. The sedan is characterized, or well, it's also kind of a fastback because it's not a separate trunk sedan, but a floating line right through there. And in the new generation, they've also made it a little bit lower, that it looks even sportier, again, then also with huge shoulders here. And as it's a hybrid, on this side here, you can already open the plug for the cable, for the plug-in, actually, as it says. The other side would then be for the fuel. So what do you think about the side profile? Here also with those huge optional 21-inch rims in dark black. Also acid green we'll find here at the rear badge, and I think it is really amazing that the top of the line model is just and only available as a hybrid, and this also leads the way for the electrification strategy at Porsche. You know, there's also the Porsche Mission E, the fully electric model, the Tesla Model S competitor, which will be, well, probably coming in 2019. A little bit too late, of course, but here with the hybrid, at least a first step. 1, 2, 3, 4 massive exhaust pipes, no fake, here also in the same black color. This is also typical for the turbo. Here in the Turbo S it's not really different, but the sound is also the very same as with the normal V8. You just have more boost from the electric engine. I would say we'll take a look at it in the front. Ta-da, here it is, also with the frame in acid green, 4-liter V8. There's also the V6 hybrid. We drove that one in South Africa and had consumption about 7 liters. And that's approximately the one you get with the diesel. So this can be a replacement for a diesel. Here more meant to be a power boost with a top version than the V8 hybrid with altogether 680 horsepower. And by 3.4 seconds to 100 kilometers, it's even 0.2 seconds faster than a normal V8 turbo. And you know that I love to show you cutaway models, and this one here of the turbo hybrid. And the interesting thing is that everything which is electric you can see either in orange with the cables or in red if it's part of the battery or the electric motor. And that's very well to see here. For example, it's built by ZF, by the way. You see the logo, the electric motor right here, which is in the front there. It's a little bit hidden, but the red part you can see is the electric motor. And then you can see that all the cables, the connections, they go right there. This is also, you know, the where the clutch is for the all-wheel drive, by the way. In the middle then for the all-wheel drive distribution. Then the big battery block here in the rear. And by the way, the recuperation only works here over the rear axle. So the front brakes do not take any part of that. And if you want to recuperate, the rolling would just be sailing. It doesn't recuperate if you hit the brake. Then it is recuperating, but just via the rear axle, and then the energy is getting back to the battery once again. Also if you go in the respective driving mode. And here is also the charger I've shown you earlier. Then it goes here, or ultimately then in the battery again. So you know what's underneath the car then. And now we'll search for some sporty elements in the interior. In the Sport Turismo review, we're more focused on what you could possibly also store in that vehicle. That might be not the crucial point here. First of all, we got the optional soft close right there, that you don't have to slam the doors. Then let's open it. Also a carbon fiber trim right there, in combination with chrome. Then with the memory seat, open or close the doors. The petrol one, by the way, the petrol fuel, you have to unlock it right there, whereas the other one, for the electric plug-in, you don't have to unleash. Interesting fact. Then on the inside, sporty interior as we know from Porsche, just little chrome elements right there, and in combination with the real carbon fiber we got there. Those levers here, they have also been covered now with a shiny black surface right there. And you see the design scheme is again as on the outside. When you put some wrap over something and pull it tight. This is the design scheme they always use, that everything looks really like a tall muscle, for example. To turn the car on and off, you have not the key here, it's just the separate module that you don't have to put the key right in there, you can just leave it somewhere else. Steering wheel, sporty gaps right there, and then let's take a look at the seats. Those ones are already those with a little bit more side support right there in this area and also in the shoulder part. Overall very comfortable. Then you also got a Turbo S imprinted logo right there. Unfortunately, there's no offering, for example, of fabric or Alcantara for the inside here yet. Still looking forward to the GTS test, and you can see it already right here, for example, that you can get it optional, get the ceiling all together in Alcantara, which makes a very worthy atmosphere. You can also take a look at it when you go a little bit lower and then take a look above. This one is completely covered in Alcantara, and I mean, in your free time you could, for example, also groom it maybe to your favorite style, like this, or then in the other way around. So maybe I'll just do it once and then never touch it again. It looks best. Let's get inside. Sporty seating position. You do fall in the seats a little bit, but you could also put them higher. Electric lumbar support is also possible. Electric seat and also electric steering control, so you can find a good position. Still, when you put the seat very low, I'm on just 86 or 6'1", and especially when you do not have a panoramic roof mounted, there's plenty of headroom left. We could compare it because in our Sport Turismo review we had the panoramic roof and it was like this. So you do lose headroom with the panoramic roof. It really depends on how tall you are actually. And you do have a sporty driving position like in a sports car, but at the same time you are in a luxury sedan, and this compromise is also what this car is all about. So the instruments with the acid green arrow here, nice detail. And you see the outer parts are digital, just the RPM meter is analog. And on the right side, for example, you can have the GPS view, that is possible. But also here in acid green, the analog digital clock, for example, or also how, like here in the moment, 32 kilometers, how many kilometers you have left for the electric range, G-force meter, also here the battery visualization. It's actually exactly there where it is. So pretty interesting always to examine those instruments. Cockpit overview here. Horizontal stress with the chrome elements. Clean design, less buttons than in the previous generation. Here we also have the special hybrid visualization, which is special for the V6 and the V8 hybrid. At the moment 32 kilometers range left. About 50 pure electric range there is, and it's also realistic. Also the Sport Chrono package, which is inbuilt here, has also the acid green arrow, and I really like it. It's something more emotional for sure with the hybrid models. The steering wheel will have those different driving modes here, and you can see when I'm changing at the steering wheel, they also change in the display. Hybrid auto always decides for itself which is actually the best one. E-hold, by the way, would be then to remain the status of the battery. E-charge would be that you charge it while you're driving outside the city, for example, then you can drive electric in the city again. And Sport and Sport Plus, this is just to get the most performance out of the vehicle. And you also have this boost button with Sport Response for a couple of seconds, then same with the normal turbo to get the maximum boost really out of this vehicle. Other than that, we got also this very even surface here in the lower part of the middle console with hotkeys, then also for the infotainment system, where, for example, you can switch to the climate mode inside, then climate control still with metal knurled buttons for the temperature, seat heating right there, suspension setting, automatic handbrake, and this automatic lever. You could also put it to the left side for manual, but you would use the pedals right there, especially on the Racetrack, if you don't leave it in auto mode, because then you can really control everything with two hands all of the time, especially for non-professional race driver. That's the best solution. So one more closer look at the infotainment. In this hybrid mode, you can also check out the e-flow. So there's the visualization when it's going back to the battery recuperation. Here with the visualization I can also explain you that the all-wheel drive is predominantly rear wheel bias, just a little bit percentage in the front, and then maximum 50% to the front. And the hybrid system is not that it's with other manufacturers just for front and just for the rear axle. It goes through the whole drive shaft, so it's always on both. So no matter what the car does, it's always supported then by the electric system too. And the battery is placed there down in the trunk like you see it here. You can also have some statistics when you have driven a little bit longer than, and for example also set a timer when to charge, but I'm not sure how often this will be used. Other than that, climate control, you can set it right here in the display. That's not my favorite, I would like some buttons for that still. However, now I really get along with the system quite well. Also, I like the visualizations. For example, here you can put out the spoiler, and it also shows then in the display. Now here, for example, to close it again, it's a very spectacular effect for sure. Phone either connected via Bluetooth right there, or also with Apple CarPlay, Android Auto with a cable connection. And the GPS, we're in BC, near Vancouver Island. Here I can show you that. There's Vancouver Island, there's Vancouver. Good visualization, and also we tested the GPS here around a little bit. It does a good job. Middle console here with beverage holders, also to have an even service on demand. Put up the middle console, and then it was interesting, one USB slot here just in the front, but your smartphone, for example, you can put right here in this lash to secure it, and also on the other side, you know, something for the key to put in. You also have the soft close in the rear, so that's also good for chauffeur purposes maybe, but for that it's also the executive version. Here the door doesn't open too wide, so you have to squeeze yourself in. Knee room is available also for taller adults, but again is also a very long car. Headroom, here we profit that we don't have a panoramic roof, still some space left. There again, if you compare our Sport Turismo review, the Estate or the Shooting Brake has an advantage because you can still go for the panoramic roof and still have enough headroom. It is a sports seat here, like here also in the rear, so it might also be an advantage for the racetrack if someone would ever go really on the racetrack with this vehicle, which is possible. And also electric controls, if you like, for those rear seats, that is possible. And also the biggest difference is here, we do not have a middle seat. That one again is possible with a throughout bench with 3 seats in the Sport Turismo. So here in the middle console we have seat heating, for example. Again, all optional, some space. Then in the middle part we have more USB supports, and those ones are, we talked about it in an earlier review, they are so expensive. I think it was 600 or 800 euros for additional USB slots here. 2 to charge, here's another one. And those adaptive beverage holders, they come up a little bit for taller bottles if you like so. And if you press this button here in the front, that is collecting fingerprints. This one here also then is activating the rear sunshade. By the way, I like those chalk color seat belts here for the inside, good detail. Then there's an armrest with some space underneath. You can also have it as a ski hatch right there, and you can also, even in the sedan, flip the seats already. Well, I have to put the seat in the front here a little bit more. That's always the thing, if you have it set up for tall drivers, you cannot really flip it because of those high integrated head restraints. Let's move the seat a little bit forward and then switch to the trunk view. Let's open the electric tailgate, and yeah, I mean, it's rather a fastback because you can already have this open access trunk. But then again, you have a high loading sill right there. You would not have it with the Sport Turismos. Check it out in comparison in that review. With the hybrids, you do not have any space underneath that because the battery is placed right there. You can already see that at the orange cables. Always when you have some electrifications, this is the sign for high voltage then in the car. Other than that, it's well usable. You have also this trunk cover. You can actually connect then to the upper part, and then it's automatically drawn back and forth all the time. Or you can also remove that, and here, that was here the part with the electric trunk cover. And I can also flip down the last seat, and you can see the full length you could possibly use. Here it is. And already the sedan is well usable, but especially to slide things in and out, the Sport Turismo helps you more with this low loading sill. So what about child safety? Is it sensitive enough? Well, I think it's okay. Had some force, but I mean, it could resist actually, so that should be fine and no one gets squished. So guys, ready for rumble, time for the racetrack, and yeah, you know, I'm wearing jacket suit because this one here is a sports car in a suit, isn't it? And we're in the Sport Plus mode. Let's see how we can push this very racetrack. We also got an instructor in front of us just to be safe. And of course, it's always nice for the camera as well to see another vehicle in front of us driving, which is also a Panamera Turbo S. And we are getting going here, just a first introduction round, and then later on we're going faster and faster and faster. You also see that the vehicle in front of us has the wing outside completely now. Now it's in again. There you can see how it varies depending on the speed. And the suspension is really super comfortable. So it can have something when you have this vehicle here on the racetrack rather than a 911, because the 911 is of course rougher. Just listen to the sound a little bit here in the Sport Plus mode. And I also have this electric boost then, altogether 680 horsepower. Of course, the main thing is here the petrol engine for this very vehicle. You have also seen the launch control, which was amazing really. With the help of the electric engine, that was really like serious stuff. All-wheel drive system. You can also take a look at the all-wheel drive distribution, mostly in the rear. And the more I hammer the throttle, the more comes also to the front. You can also see it in the instruments, maybe on camera. How easy this car is to handle. Now the tires are starting to squeak a little bit. I mean, it has some serious weight with it. You know, that's the only disadvantage, basically. But for this weight, considering the size of the car, it's really so well to handle. I mean, it's a over 5 meters, 60'6" long sedan. Look at how agile this vehicle is. In Sport Plus mode, also the shifting process is hammering more in just a little bit. So you're really feeling the shifting processes. And when you hammer the throttle really to the bottom, that's also a funny feeling because there's still so much more boost this vehicle is actually able to give you. It's also very well balanced. Well, this one is not the one where you can really get the wheel spinning or something like that. So this was some nice introduction. And now you maybe also see and hear that on camera, just a little last notch I'm pressing the throttle, how the car is really coming out even more than there. There we go. Bam. Wow. So at my left knee, that could be a little bit soft at the inside of the door. See here, when I'm going outside, now 150 just on this very short straight. Considering the speed I'm going, also look at how little the car is tilting. The Sport Plus now, of course, reduces the electronic stability control. So I'm able to ease the car more around. But again, even the road is just a little bit wet, which is not having the biggest effect here yet. But there's surely hardly any other vehicle at that size. Look at that. How explosive it's coming out of the corner. Overdrive distribution, as I said earlier, mainly rear wheel bias, on demand also front. Just a little notch, maybe 1/4 usually of the times, because we have a lot of grip here on this racetrack, and when you accelerate, also most of the car is leaning backwards, just physics, and then you have more weight on the rear axle. So always when the tires are squeaking, then you realize that I'm just on the physical border of what the car is actually able to do. Very direct steering, and on the road again, the suspension can give you so much comfort. So this vehicle is actually able to do both. From the way that is being shoveled to the left and the right, the seating position itself is of course more comfortable. The animal skin surface seats, they are really the worst for on the racetrack here, because they make me shift from right to left too much. So microfiber surface would be way better here for sure. And so that you get carried around to the left and the right just a little bit too much, this is something you could, rather not have on the racetrack here. Again, hardly any Porsche Panamera customer will ever go to the racetrack, but this one is here just a showcase of what the car is actually capable of, how agile it really is, and I think you get a really good impression of how this vehicle is brutally working perfect. Wow. I mean, the brakes are probably even more amazing. So how do you enjoy being on the racetrack here with me, guys? I hope you really like it. I'm more, I really like being on the ice track, on snow, because that's, more artistic. Why not going over the curbs sometimes? Also here in those very small left-right, car shows itself really agile. So what do you think, guys? And yes, it works to have the top of the line model also electrified. Why not? And it's really a glimpse of what is to come then, when at some point there's the fully electric Porsche to come. So let's say enjoy the last corners here with me with squeaking tires. It's as brutal as it gets here with the all-new Panamera and the Turbo S hybrid trip. So let's leave the racetrack, because with the Turbo S hybrid we will also experience just normal road driving. And the amazing thing is, ta-da, use the force to open the gate. The amazing thing is, it's a hybrid, so you're starting just in electric mode and it's totally silent. And if you, for example, want to use it for commuting to work and can charge at home or at work, why not? And when you're in this e-power mode, the car also tries to leave it in the e-mode. When I'm just gently with the throttle, you see the RPM stays at 0, so I can just accelerate pure electric. There's also the small screen right there, and I can also have the big electrification screen right here. There I can see what's happening at the moment. For example, the e-flow. At the moment it shows me all the power is coming from the battery into the wheels. And I still manage to keep it at 0 RPM for the engine. And we did this test once with a V6, and we could really drive like for about 45 kilometers pure electric. And then the petrol engine set in, but still you could consume a little bit less fuel on long-term run, because the car is always then recuperating when you, for example, lift the throttle, when you hit the brake in front of a traffic light or something like that, because then again, if you just lift the throttle, the car like this is just rolling. And that is the most efficient way, because rolling is always more efficient than recuperating if you want to make as much distance as possible. Of course, recuperating or regenerative braking is better than when you, for example, want to reduce the speed really at the same time. And it's really amazing that we were just on the racetrack, and that was really brutal with this vehicle, and here we are just on the road in the electric drive, and it's even more silent in here in combination with the good sound insulation, and this vehicle is really able to do both. So it can also be a good displacement for a diesel, especially talking about the V6 hybrid, which is the best offer in the Panamera lineup. This one here, of course, with 185,000 euros plus extras, easily at 200,000 euros. Of course, more than double the price of a base Panamera. You couldn't really talk about a good deal then. But still, it's both possible. And the thing is really that when you go for this hybrid and you're driving on the roads, I mean, there are no really high speeds roads here in Canada. Most countries is the same. Germany is actually only the real country where you can drive so fast, and only if there's not big traffic. And then the hybrid really makes sense. Here, for example, just applying the brake a little bit and it's almost fully charging already. And I can also see that in the visualization on the right side too. And then I know, okay, the energy is not really being lost. And that is also the reason, even if the energy is totally depleted, it still can get something back then from the braking process, and that helps you to bring down the consumption. And it's really a crazy thing when you think about driving a 680 horsepower vehicle, and then you talk about, yeah, come on, let's save some fuel. We can also reset the fuel meter, by the way. So maybe when we are drained of the battery, then we can tell you something about the consumption. The Racetrack consumption, by the way, is 30 liters on 100 kilometers. That is Racetrack consumption. So just that you know it. So now let's just reset it. By the way, if you have maybe seen it, it shows me at the moment that I would be at the wrong tire pressure. That can happen when you did some laps at the racetrack. That messes with your tire pressure a little bit. And then the electric system, which is usually working just for road use, doesn't really cope with that much. So now, by the way, what was interesting, when I'm approaching an intersection, I didn't change it myself. The GPS changes automatically in the right side of the instruments and then shows me the next intersection. So that way you cannot really miss something. For example, when you're looking at the G-force meter while driving, and you don't really think about the GPS, but then it appears again and here. As soon as I took the corner, then it disappears again. I can concentrate on, let's check the oil temperature, it's so important, and the coolant temperature, and everything. And there's the police. Want to catch some Porsche? Maybe not today. But of course, when we could just drive so fast on the racetrack, so we're really fine with driving very slowly here. Next thing is 90 kilometers an hour, and still driving in this e-power mode. You can set the cruise control right here with this right lever, push it forward, set it to a certain speed, and then I can really relax also with that cruise control. Now the car should also be keeping a distance to the vehicles in front of me. It's maybe, is it not? That's strange. Maybe it's not the adaptive cruise control in here. Okay, so even that's extra with the Turbo S hybrid. That should be included, shouldn't it? And when you're stuck here in traffic, for example, or at the next traffic light, this is also the best about the hybrid. You don't have this like starting process over again, out, on. And this is really also good for people who are living in surrounding, that it's not that loud, especially here in city traffic. And there will be the times where there will only be electric or maybe CNG traffic available in the inside of the cities. Stuff like this is approaching now to bring down the emission levels inside the cities. And then, for example, you can have a big sports car, but still drive without local emissions than in the city. So that would maybe use for that. When you're going in those other modes, by the way, it's also possible. Let's go to the mode screen right there. So there's also the H mode or hybrid auto. Then it can happen, that the car switches around from just electric plus combustion plus a little bit electric help. Does it all in itself. I can also go to the E-hold mode. Then the battery will not be depleted and will just be at the same status as it is. That it means that see it right here now, the engine set in. Now the status of the battery is being held. Also with the E-charge mode, when the battery is being charged, that means it consumes more fuel. The engine has to work against the resistance. And that is, for example, when I'm getting to a future city where I'm only allowed to drive them with the electric mode. I charge it, for example, here now on the countryside road, and then use the battery in the neighborhood, for example. That would be the use of that one. And when I'm in the Sport or Sport Plus mode, then of course the combustion engine is always active and the electric engine is used as a boost. Also, I can press this boost button, then I got the Sport response just for 20 seconds. I'm deactivating it now because it doesn't make any sense. It's not exactly the same when you hammer the throttle really hard. I'm not really sure. It's a little bit of a show-off element, because on the racetrack you rather concentrate, on really steering well and pushing the throttle down to the max. I think you wouldn't really mess with the boost button when you're just inside the track going around there. Oh no, the police. Come on. They don't want to follow us. That's always good to know. But we didn't do anything. So anyway, let's go back to the E mode, because this is really most fun here. One thing that is very interesting, when you hammer the throttle really down to max, some hybrids, they act differently. Some, they really stay in the electric mode when you have picked that one, no matter what. And you can accelerate really hard also when pushing down the throttle. Porsche did another decision here. They said maybe when the customer is really pushing the pedal to the floor, wants to have the maximum acceleration for whatever reason. And so what is happening here is when you really floor the pedal, then you also have the combustion engine activated even in the e-power mode. I rather prefer that you don't just have the electric power when you're in the E mode. That would be my approach to it. But I can also, think about, the other approach. Maybe, for safety reasons, when you want to do some overtaking, you see, it's getting very close, I need more throttle. But then again, the pure electric mode has also so much throttle. Talking about the suspension, although this is here the top of the line sports model, with the air suspension you always have a lot of comfort, especially if you stick to the normal modes. It is a little bit stiffer somewhat than in the normal models, but still, you wouldn't really notice that it would be a sports car because you have the comfort at the same time. The steering wheel is direct as you saw it on the Racetrack and has this typical natural Porsche feeling. It's not too progressive, so if you think about some other Volkswagen AG cars like a sporty Golf or with Audi cars, there the steering wheel is a little bit more progressive. Here with Porsche they try to keep it a little bit more natural racing style, that you have to steer a little bit more. I think also again thinking about what the customers really expect there. And I mean, this is really a funny use for the vehicle when you've just been on the racetrack having fun and then you drive, for example, home, or in this case our hotel, then you're just in this electric power mode. And well, we remained the range almost completely so far now, and of course just had some time where we activated the petrol engine. It's at 2.7 liters now at the moment. Of course it will go up when the energy from the battery is depleted. But yet again, with the diesel, with the 4S diesel, we had here about 6 to 7 liters consumption, and with the V6 hybrid we had about 7 liters consumption on a long-term run really. So you can compare the consumption of the diesels and of the hybrid, and the more you drive this one in the hybrid mode, the less will also be the consumption difference between the V6 and the V8. And I mean, you can really say, why not combining it? You will have some situations, even if you have this vehicle like this, you're just standing still, and at the moment we are emitting nothing, and then we're starting again. And we also have, by the way, a good acceleration just in the e-power mode. So everything you can do in traffic will also be available with that, even when you're going on the motorway, for example. And the car feels more silent, even more luxurious when you don't have the engine sound. So it's also a key finding that this is such a powerful vehicle. I mean, you've seen the massive exhaust and the sound it's able to give. But at the same time, you're saying, oh, I do enjoy driving this car even silently. And this is again something that might be going in the direction of the pure electric Porsche we are all expecting. This will somewhat be something like this we are experiencing here at the moment in the hybrid mode. So, Racetrack inside with all the agility, then also with the everyday driving capacity, and especially with the electric power mode. The range you see is really realistic. The car wasn't really full and still 30 kilometers of range still. We will remain that, so maybe a whole way to the hotel we can drive electric now. And I think it's a really interesting approach. What do you think? And now to our conclusion, Porsche Panamera Turbo S Hybrid, the new top-of-the-line model. Exterior-wise, really dramatic with the additional styling elements. I like the acid green styling elements in detail, especially also in the interior. Brings a little bit more spice with those green arrows, for example. Great processing in the interior. As a sedan, still quite flexible in the interior, especially with this fastback opening. If you want even more, then go for the Sport Turismo. Check out the review in the video description about that. Of course, as with other Panamera models, they lack on sustainable seating surfaces. They have to introduce that. Racetrack experience, that was really amazing. Hardly any other car at this weight, at this size, can be so agile on the racetrack, and it was even fun on the racetrack. Although with this massive size, the performance, especially you've seen the launch control, we don't have to talk about that. This one can keep up with any other real small sports car performance-wise. Really impressive, and also interesting that they had the choice to get the top-of-the-line model as a hybrid. And even more interesting to me is the same way what I found with the V6 hybrid. Riding electric fits to this vehicle, and the funny thing is that the electric driving, and pure electric with the silence and the serenity of this vehicle is almost more fun, or maybe to me is more fun than really hammering this car on the racetrack. And then that is, I think, one of the key findings also to me actually for today. What do you think about this vehicle here? About the both extreme aspects from pure silence to real loudness and launch control? Tell me in the comments, and also join us for our other Panamera episodes. Thanks for watching.